My name is Bruce Malcom. I'm a public safety specialist, and I've been with the library on and off about 3 years now. I went into the military, and it was January 11th of 2011. I enlisted in 2010. I still was working for the library as a library service assistant at the time. I was 20 years old. I chose to join because, to be honest, I was young. I didn't want to do college, which is funny because I was doing a lot of college, and I just wanted to try to see what something different was like, and it appeased my parents, so I said, hey, I'll do 4 to 6 years, and that turned out to be a little bit longer. I was living here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Originally, I was going to either go to the Marines or to the Army, and then when I heard about the testing and I took my ASVAB, I scored high enough to easily get into the Air Force. I saw some of these job options and thought, hey, this seems to be I don't want to say smarter branch, but this seems to be where the people can have easier jobs. So I wanted to try to make my time as easy as possible. And I ended up choosing a job that was in the maintenance career field. I was a tactical aircraft maintainer. So my job was the opposite of what I thought, but I did learn a lot from my experience there. So I'm still grateful that I chose that career path. When I joined the basic, so going off the basic training, I was excited up until the day that I left, which was January 10th of 2011. They gave me a stipend to eat all the McDonald's that I wanted, so I was excited, like, hey, this is the Air Force life. I'm going to like this. I got on the plane. It was my first time flying on an airplane. I got to basic training and had no clue what my job was. I did 8.5 weeks of basic training. Of course, that was kind of rigorous. We had a lot of people that were butt heads, but I feel like that's what the military is all about, kind of breaking you down and making you into a team player. After I graduated, everybody knew what their jobs were except for me. And so I'm thinking, hey, I went in open mechanic. I'm going to be like working on possibly like specialty vehicles or something like that. When I got to my base, to my training base in Wichita Falls, Texas, they still wouldn't tell me until the first day of class. And they told me, hey, you were going to go work on the F-15 Strike Eagle. You were going to be doing tactical aircraft maintenance. And still, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that, hey, I might have to work on airplanes. And they explained to me that you will be in charge of pretty much validating if aircraft is good to fly. So I pictured myself walking around with the clipboard, dressed in my blues, looking all handsome, and just, well, this is good. Well, this is good, and it will be easy. They didn't explain to me that it took about 10 to 15 years to get to that point, and until then, I would be a super hardworking crew chief or a aircraft maintainer. I wasn't really mechanically inclined at the time, but I had to pretty much learn and adapt, and it really hit me when I was in tech school, and my teacher, Miss Ratcliffe, she put out these things called safety wire pliers. So we got to twist the safety wire up. Safety wire is very sharp. If you don't know how to twist it, it cuts your hands up. So our hands are like bleeding because we're new to this and we don't know how to do it. And she looked at me and she saw me struggling. And she saw me, I wasn't crying, but inside I was just dying. Like, this can't be what I signed up to actually do. And she told me, like, yeah, you're a maintainer now. There's no turning back. And from that point on, it kind of changed my mindset. And that's when reality struck that, okay, this is not going to be what you thought it was, but just because you're dealt a pretty crappy hand, it's not about the hand you're dealt, but it's about the way you play it. So I feel like I played it out pretty well. But at that time, I was dreading. I was just like, look, I got to get these next 6 years done with. But within that 6-year period, a whole lot changed. So it wound up being a pretty good job. I met a lot of good friends. The greatest camaraderie that I've ever seen. So it was a journey from start to finish. And it just so happened that I went to tech school there to where they teach us how to do our job. In tech school, you actually get awarded, I believe it was 22 college credit hours. And then once you do that, you go to your base and you learn there. It just so happens that I did that, went to my base in Goldsboro, North Carolina, Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. And I did my 5.5 years there, and then I actually got sent back to teach back in Wichita Falls. It was kind of a full circle thing for me, where I taught about 4.5 years of technical aircraft maintenance, and I got to do a lot of schooling during that time period as well. So the way that the Air Force did it, because people make fun of us for being the nerdy branch, they joke about the smarts, but the Community College of the Air Force actually they made it so that me going to teach, because I got done with my aviation technology degree in 2016. I still was working the flight line, still was doing maintenance. And then when I chose to go and instruct, all that I had to do since I already had it, because to be an instructor of a college course, because that's technically, since they're credit awarding, you're technically you technically have to have some of the certs that instructors have to have. So they make you go through this thing, and they actually give you your aviation technology if you don't have it, but they also give you your associates for military instruction. And of course, since I have more time, since I'm not working 12 to 14 hours, I went back to school and got my bachelor's for business administration. So I got out with a lot of schooling. Even though I said earlier the situation seemed kind of not so good when I started, I got out with quite a bit of education and took advantage of some of the perks that they had. So all in all, it was a good experience for me. For a lot of people, having a military background, they don't understand how it translates over. They don't understand like the discipline. And I could easily go and get my A&P and go work at Cincinnati State, but I told you about how a lot of my students committed suicide. So me teaching, even though I didn't directly cause them to, I feel like me knowing how this career field is and how stressful it is, I kind of feel kind of responsible to a certain extent. So I don't really have a good relationship with the teaching aspect. So I try to stay away from I don't mind teaching anything else, but when it comes to technical aircraft maintenance, I feel like it was about, from the time that I got out in July of 2021 till now, I had about approximately 15 to 16 students that pretty much have committed suicide. The suicide rate is really high in the Air Force. I'm going to be honest, the job sucks. And you have to deal with that. You have to deal with life stuff. When you're in the military, you're never home. I used to work 12s. Like, working a 10-hour shift was nice. That was going home early. So we had a lot of maintenance, and no matter what's going on, the mission has to get done. Jets have to fly, pilots have to be trained. Once you get over to the desert, we actually were working at first 15 to 16-hour shifts, and that was six days a week. And then finally the commander came down and said, hey, we should work it a little bit better. So we win. So we went down to 10 hours actively on the flight line, and that didn't include our ride time, our time to get tools, turn tools in. So it was about 11 to 12 hours each day, which was better. That was nice for us. But so it was very. I said earlier how people call it the chair force because they're not familiar with a lot of the maintenance jobs. When I tell people like in the Army or people from the Marine Corps that, hey, you know when you're pinned down and a jet flies by and drops a bunch of bombs, I was like, I put that jet up. And that's when they're like, oh, so you're there 24/7. I'm like, yeah, it's always manned, always something going on, always some maintenance, always fixing something. So we don't really get a break. And so it's just my specific career field. Now, if you go over to like something else, like if you go to finance, they're like maybe 8 to 4. They close down. They're done for the weekend. And if they mess something up, it doesn't matter. If I mess something up and the jet crashes, I go to jail. So it's just different stressors, different things. All I would have to do right now, because I had the option to either spend my time getting my bachelor's or go back and get my A&P. If I got my A&P, which is my aerospace and propulsion license, I could go work anywhere and just work on planes. I just personally don't really want to. Sure. After a while, it's like, even just hearing jets pass over, I just feel like, oh man, we're staying for 12 hours. Something's broke. Like, it's because you hear jets, like people get excited whenever they hear jets pass, they get excited at air shows. I used to work those air shows. So while people were like excited, they were hearing bombs go off left and right. For us, we've done it working. So once we hear a bomb go off, we all duck thinking, because we all have been down range to where if a bomb goes off and it's not you, something's wrong. So it's quite an experience. So you bring back some good, but you bring back some bad too. I was on the flight line for so long that when I went to teach, I knew what everything was, but I didn't know how to say it the right way. Like they would say an airframe mounted accessories drive. I called it an AMAT for like 5.5 years. So when I had to teach it, I was like, guys, I'm just learning what this is too. I know what it is, but I've never had to use the correct terminology for it. So I'm used to just, hey man, let's toss this AMAT in, let's go take it back to back shop so you can fix it. But then I started teaching and I'm like, wait, well this makes sense now that I'm actually reading through all the stuff and doing it the right way, because we have to teach things by the book. Of course, you learn about the book, but when you get out there, you have to turn jets. That's just what it is. The jet will come down broken. Hey man, let's try to make the next turn in 2 or 3 hours. Let's see if we can green this jet up and get it flying. So that part, I also love the race against the clock. You always seem to be really boom, 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 boom. There was no time for playing around. Sometimes there wasn't time for lunch as you got older as an airman. You got into that staff sergeant rank. Sometimes you had to skip your lunch because production has to meet certain timelines. So you got to make sure that happens. And that's one thing that I learned is as I got older, in my rank and also in this life. Part of being a leader for me is I sacrifice a lot for people that are under me, the people that were under me. I sacrificed a lot for them, but that's what made the team work because when the younger airmen felt like they were supported, don't want to say that they worked harder, but they worked more efficient, which made it all work so that I didn't look bad, they don't look bad, production doesn't look bad because we all know when the snowball starts rolling, it rolls downhill fast. So we got really good at that. I got a chance to work with and lead a lot of great people, like great people. The Air Force was awesome. I met one of my best friends now, I actually met in basic training. So we still keep in contact, and he's still he's the master sergeant now doing really, really well. So just seeing us go from very young men to now we're both married with 3 kids, and you really make some lifelong friends. You build a lot of really close friendships to where even after he's done and I'm done with it, we're in our 60s, we'll still probably call each other every 3 to 6 months and just catch up. So, and I don't have a lot of friends that call me on that kind of basis. So it was really cool just to get out and still have family that still checks on me. So in the military, I'll just name a few things that I learned. I learned three main things. One, I learned that it's kind of an honor to be that workhorse. Some people don't like to be the one that carries the workload because everywhere you go, there are people that work, people that kind of slack off. That's how it typically works. And I became like one of those guys that if somebody's slacking, I would still pick it up and try to understand their situation later. But there's nothing wrong with being the person that gets the crappy shift or they get put in a crappy situation because they know that you can do it. That kind of was, I always enjoyed that challenge of, hey, this can't be done. Watch it get done. I also learned that people were very different, and sometimes we label people as dirt bags and they were just bad airmen, but when you sit down and talk to them, they had a lot of stuff that was going on. And I think that with the suicide rate being so high, we started to tap into that, and I started to learn that the people that I didn't like at first were the people that had the most to actually offer. And when I talked to them and learned it, I saw that, hey, it's not a you problem, it's a me problem, not me not trying to understand you, because we sometimes create this box where everybody has to fit in. And especially now that I'm here seeing the public, one thing that I've learned from the people here, the patrons here, is that everybody goes throughout the day. No one wakes up with bad intent. Well, almost no one wakes up with just bad intentions. Typically, it takes things that transpire over that day for things to go downhill. And when you take the time to kind of take a step back and understand that person, you kind of learn what makes certain people tick. So I feel like just learning that everybody is an individual, even though we fall under this great big umbrella, it's a melting pot of different personalities, cultures, and everything else. And then the last thing that I realized is that a smile goes from generation to generation, from culture to culture. I got a chance to teach people, of course, from our Air Force, but I also got a chance. We had a contract with the United Arab Emirates, so they would send some of their guys over to train with us. So teaching people, having that language barrier, I used to have a bad stutter, so they were hesitant on me teaching. Somehow I got the job. And having somebody from a different country, we would like clash. But one thing that always, anytime that I had doubt about what was going on, I would just smile and laugh, and then they would reciprocate that to me, and then it would kind of work its way through. Some of my best students were from different countries, and the barrier that I was so scared of happened to be the barrier that made us. We had some of the greatest times, and they're still on my Facebook. They still check in from different countries, and once I realized that being kind goes a lot further than any kind of degree, any kind of knowledge. Just a smile can change the situation from, hey, we don't know, to being one that's positive. So that's one thing that I took away. I also took away that the flight line, we had a very, I don't say dark sense of humor, but we joked about the things that most people wouldn't joke about. But I learned from them that even in bad situations, when you smile through it, it builds that camaraderie, and it makes it a little bit easier because, like I told you guys, it was very tough out there. But we used to complain the entire shift. We would call each other after the shift, but then once it all got done and we got that recognition or we got that jet up, it was like every day was like a victory. It was like you win the gold medal every time supervision come down and they're great. It was actually a time we were in the desert. We did a lot, and we were at this all call where they had everybody. They had the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Army. We were all there, and of course we're Air Force, so we know what we do, but we don't think that everybody else knows. And it was this colonel, this full-bird colonel. He stood up, and he was a Marine, and he stood up and said, we were, what was our unit there? We were the 380th AMU. He said, you all stand, we stand up. Everybody else got pristine uniform. We are fresh out all the flight lines, so we got like brake dust on our face and our hands, and we're dirty. Everything's just dirty, and everybody's kind of just staring at us, and you kind of hear the snickering, which we kind of were used to. Cause being on the Air Force base, everybody thinks that you're just a dirty crew chief because you're always dirty, but they don't know why you're dirty. This colonel told us that I just want to thank you guys because and he gave us our stats on what we had dropped, what we did, but then he specifically said, one time my men were pinned down and you guys came and saved us, and even though we gave you about 15 minutes, you still got a jet there and you cleared everything out for us, and that's the reason why my guys came home. And in that moment, I mean, I saw a lot of the footage from bomb dropping and the damage that actually gets done, but in that moment, it kind of, I think that's the moment that because I actually was a senior airman at the time, that's the moment that I became a staff sergeant and saw the full picture of, hey, this is why we do it, this is what we do, these are our brothers and sisters, so it's all one big team. You hear a lot of bickering between the different branches, but when it comes down to the bickering, I pretty much learned were for the lower level people that didn't get it yet, because I never heard colonels, I never heard captains going back and forth trying to crack jokes. They're all on the same team, so that camaraderie was just different, and I learned that if you're gonna have, you gotta have teamwork to make any dream work. So those are 3 things that I learned and that I will always hold dear to.